Okay, so here we go. This is Unit 8.5, vocab number 17, Emotions and Consciousness, and away we go. Let's talk about emotion. It's a response of the whole organism. Remember, we're holistic. People, psychologically speaking, are holistic folks. So this basically involves three different categories. First off, there's the physiological change, which is the physical change that you have. Your heart starts pounding, you start to sweat, any sort of physical actions because your blood's moving everywhere else. Then there's the expressive behavior, change in your face, quicken pace in your actions, nervousness, whatever. And then there's a conscious experience that goes on as well. Again, I feel fear. I am aware that I am nervous. I am aware that I am excited. All of these are part of our emotion. What you see with this category down below here is that we've got positive emotions and we have negative emotions. And positive emotions are things that we want, and they can be different levels of arousal. For example, want is very low compared to excitement. Desire is not as high of a level as passion, even though the positivity is the same. Desire is greater than like, even though it's not as intense, but passion is much greater than like, and it's also a higher level. And then you've got these on the other side with shame, hatred, contemptivity. All these things sort of fall in those categories. We go to the next one, talking about the four phases of emotion, kind of the step process that you go through it. First, there's a stimulus. You have to interpret that stimulus. Once you interpret the stimulus, you have a subjective feeling. This makes me happy. This makes me excited. This makes me scared. This makes me upset, whatever. So there's a subjective feeling that goes along with it. And then with that subjective feeling comes a physiological response. Again, my wife walks into the room and suddenly my heart starts to beat. Okay, so I'm interpreting the stimulus. That's my wife. And I start to get a sense of happiness. My heart is beating. And then as a result, your fourth one, I will display a smile. Meanwhile, she's crying. But that's the overall thing that you got there. Remember, 93% of communication, nonverbal expression. We've talked about that before. What you'll notice at the bottom here is poker. If you ever watch poker on TV, which you shouldn't because gambling's wrong and immoral, but if you ever watch poker on TV, you'll notice that a lot of these guys try to keep a straight face, a steady face, women as well. They'll wear sunglasses quite often, as you'll see the guy over here, because they're trying to hold on to their expressions. You've got different types. You've got macro expressions, which last 1 to 4 seconds. You've got micro expressions, which are very brief, like half a second, and then the subtle expressions that come as well. And we can tell the difference. There's a difference between a genuine smile. That's fake, or that's even fake. There's kind of a money smile in between. So these are all the phases of emotions. Three main theories of emotion. There's James Lang, Cannon-Bard, and the Schlachter two-factor. The James Lang theory basically states that our experiences of emotion is our awareness of our physiological response. So something stimulates us, say a shark or a car in this situation here. We're stimulated, and then we have a physical reaction to it, which creates our emotion. So the belief there is, I don't lash out because I'm angry because I lashed out. It's my physical reaction that makes me aware of my emotion, according to James Lang. So if you took it step by step, first you see the stimuli in blue. Okay, so the shark, car, whatever. Then my body's going to react. Okay, I start the pounding heart. I see the shark, I see the car, and I start to have a pounding heart. Then what happens after that, my heart is beating faster, I must be afraid. So what happens, according to James Lang, is the mind reads the body, and with the stimulus has a reaction to it. That's James Lang. If you go with Cannon-Bard's a little bit different, because you'll notice here they're all sort of happening at the same time. It's not like James Lang where it's one to the other. They're all sort of happening simultaneously. Cannon-Bard basically says there's the stimulus, it's simultaneously triggering both the physiological reaction, the heart beating, along with the emotion we're subjected to. The main argument with Cannon-Bard, as opposed to James Lang, Cannon-Bard would say just because your heart's beating faster, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're scared. You could also be excited. You could also have just run a marathon. There's a lot of reasons for your heart to beat a lot faster. So it's not just being scared. So his argument was that there's a cognitive response. So not only do we have this, but there's also the where have I seen this shark before? Where have I seen this car before? So I'm not only paying attention to my body, but I'm also paying attention to past experience as well, which again is why a baby's not going to get scared of a snake. It doesn't have a past experience, yet an adult will be afraid of a shark or a car because they've watched Shark Week, whatever. Most modern researchers, between Cannon Bard and James Lang, they go with Cannon Bard, just because it makes more sense, more than anything else. Schachter has what's called the two-factor theory, which again, go back, very similar here where everything's kind of happening at the same time. Schachter's two-factor theory states that both in order to experience an emotion, I must be physically aroused by whatever the stimulus is, but also be able to cognitively label it, as we talked about before. My heart is pounding, therefore the shark or car must be dangerous. I am afraid of this dangerous situation. So I'm having the arousal, looking back at the stimulus, which gives me the cognitive label, which will then give me the emotion. So it sort of cycles around like this. An emotion also has what they refer to as a spillover effect, okay? For example, if I've just gone running, so my heart's already beating, I'm already excited, I'm already aroused, and then somebody goes, hey, look, you just got accepted to the University of Texas. Well, I'm already excited. Now I'm really excited because my body was sort of already moving there. As opposed to if I was taking a nap and someone said, hey, you're accepted to the University of Texas. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. And then you roll over and you take the rest of your nap. It's the same stimulus. It's the same good news, except it doesn't have the same impact. Our mood can have a huge impact on our level of stress. If I'm in a good mood, I'm more tolerant. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm more likely to snap at people. So it's based on experience and everything else that goes with that. Now, Schachter's two-factor theory is very similar to what we talked about before with mirror neurons. Sorry, my cat's in here. There's a kitty cat. There's a kitty cat. Little kitty cat. All right. Don't get me started on the emotions that that causes. But again, we go back to the idea of mirror neurons, and emotions can be contagious. Somebody else yawns, we're more likely to yawn. Someone else is angry, we're more likely to get angry. Someone else smiles, we're more likely to smile. Other people look up, we're more likely to look up. But emotions can be passed on. Someone else feels heartache, we feel sad. You watch a sad movie, you walk out feeling sad. When the movie ends poorly, you're like, well, that sucked, and you're actually angry when you leave the movie. Or you leave Rocky and you feel like, hey, I'm going to beat somebody up. In a study of subjects, they did a little study here, and basically you've got the doctor giving shots to 3 different people, okay? And you got a Confederate who's acting very, very happy or very, very sad. Let's say in this situation, he's acting very happy. Now, when he gives the shot, he told the first group, hey, I gave you a shot of adrenaline, okay? Well, these people know they got a shot of adrenaline, so if they're feeling excited, they're going to blame it on the adrenaline because they know that's what they got. This next group was just told, hey, you got a flu shot. And they're starting to feel excited. Well, it's because this guy's excited. Or they start to feel an itch. Well, it's because this guy is itching, whatever the case may be. These people were told nothing, given no information whatsoever. And they're also going to experience that mood because they're just going to assume that they got it from somebody else. All right. Now, the facial feedback hypothesis, which we've talked about before, is the belief that the sensory input that's routed through the cortex goes through the amygdala. Remember, the amygdala is the barometer of our emotions. So if my face is smiling, then I'm going to feel happier. If my face is frowning, I'm going to feel worse. We talked before about the study of the guy with a pencil watching the movie, and if you watch it with a pouty face, he's much more upset than cover it way back, and you force that Jack Nicholson smile, and he's going to enjoy the movie more. When we see other people laugh, we're more likely to laugh. And then we see other people smile, our face starts to smile, my brain reads that smile, and I think that I'm happier. So again, not only do we read other people's facial expressions, we read our own facial expressions. And I think I also shared the story before about women with Botox have a harder time reading other people's emotions because when somebody else smiles, they can't mirror that smile. And therefore they can't, their brain can't tell them that they're happy. Bad side of Botox, one of many. Impact of color on emotion. Some people are very, very, really into color, my wife being one of them. Some people color just whatever. Blue, wearing right now, is a more calming color, a color of dependency and everything else. Whereas red is bold, you're in control, excitement. Usually if the president comes on and says that we're going to do something, it's going to be very intense and he's got to be in control and very bold. We're going to war. You've been attacked. I'm in control. Red tie. You'll notice Trump wears a red tie quite often. Blue ties tend to be more about calming, soothing, ocean, whatever. Purple, royalty, specifically African royalty. Wise, creative, all goes with that. You get a lot of colors. You're talking about diversity. You know, gay pride, rainbow, very much tied together. Many job consultants will actually coach you into wearing certain colors. You'll notice if you look over here, these companies and what they're trying to portray with the specific colors that they're using, the boldness of Coca-Cola, the dependability of an Oreo cookie or Facebook, whatever. All of these are different ads, or even diversity with many different colors, Google, eBay, NBC, whatnot. You take a look here and what your clothing says about you, certain colors, whatever, and what people would advise you to wear to specific meetings. Now, when we talk about the physiology of emotion, we're talking about, again, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Remember, these are part of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems are part of the peripheral nervous system, specifically autonomic nervous system, which are automatic functions. When I'm nervous, when I'm scared, I'm feeling anxiety. Sympathetic, I'm spending energy. Parasympathetic, I'm preserving energy. So this is going to change the way the body feels. And if I look at something that's stressful, here is a tiger, it is stressful. I'm going to spend energy. My pupils are going to get bigger. My mouth's going to dry up because I don't have time to salivate or digest. I'm going to start to sweat because I don't want my body to overheat. My respiration is going to go up. My heart's going to beat faster. I get all that adrenaline around, everything else. But if it's my parasympathetic nervous system, because I'm calm, that's not going to spend energy as much. Okay, emotions tend to be higher after being awake for a couple hours. You first wake up and you don't have a lot of positive emotions first waking up. Then you take the shower, everything else, you get off to school, blah, 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 it goes up, 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 up. And then now I'm really tired and I'm just grumpy and stop paying attention to me. And then my negative emotions tend to be a little bit lower during the day, but then again, it's I get groggy and up here, but then they tend to go down when I'm tired because I'm just loopy by that point. I've been up for 16 hours. When it comes to performance and social psychology, we talk about this idea of you don't want to be too high, you don't want to be too low. We also talked about this back when we talked about motivation. And remember when we talked about motivation, when I'm doing a very difficult task, I want my arousal level to be low. For those of you guys who have contacts, you put in that contact for the first time, you want people around, you go, attaboy, attaboy, get that in, get it in. You don't want that. You want quiet. And at the same time, if I'm doing a simple task, I think I told you guys a story before about my guys playing basketball, doing layup drills, and they weren't really doing that great of a job at it. And then they get in front of a crowd and it's a slam dunk competition. So again, the simple task, we do better when our arousal level's high. I'm showing off, people are watching me. The difficult tasks, we do better when our arousal level is low, so I can focus and I can concentrate. Now, Yerkes-Dodson theory of emotion basically says the optimal arousal level is right here, right kind of in the middle. You don't want it to be too high, you don't want it to be too low, because during any day, we're going to do a lot of difficult tasks, and we're going to do a lot of easy tasks, and I want to kind of be right here in the money, in the middle, so I can sort of switch between the two. It's hard for me to calm down if I get too excited. It's hard for me to get up if I've been too down. So the optimal arousal level is in the middle. Also from social psychology, when I'm good at something, I'm better when I'm in front of a group. Right now I'm lecturing, it's me by myself in my office. it's just me speaking into a computer. I don't think this is as good as if I'm doing a lecture in front of 35 students, uh, asking just about as many questions as I'm hearing right now. When we've not mastered a task, we perform worse in front of others. There's the study in social psychology of the guy playing pool. If you're really good at playing pool, you perform better in the game than you do in practice. And if you're really bad at pool, you perform worse in the game than what you do in practice because of that pressure. When it comes to lying, excuse me, beverage. When it comes to lying, just as emotions are difficult to control, they can be unpredictable. So are physiological reactions. When you take a look at a lie detector isn't measuring whether you lie, it's measuring what your body's physical reaction is to it. Police can use this for investigations, but they cannot use it in a court of law because, again, I'm looking for physiological reactions. Most of us get nervous when we lie, sort of thing that goes on. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, we tend to sweat. Most of us will do that when we're lying. But it is possible that a guilty person can beat the polygraph by just controlling their emotions, keeping it in you. And these people are psychopaths or sociopaths. The idea that I'm lying, so what, I'm lying. You're believing it, whatever. I stole your girlfriend, whatever. I'm not going to sweat. It's not going to make my heart beat or anything else. I'm a cold killer. Yet some people at the same time, even when they're innocent, are going to be nervous. When you've been accused of doing something you didn't do, and you're like, you get nervous, you get upset, and your heart starts to beat, the adrenaline's going around. Why am I being accused of this? It's very likely you're going to show the physiological reactions of a lot of people lying. So again, sometimes innocent people can be judged innocent, but they can also be judged guilty on the polygraph. And sometimes guilty people can be judged innocent on the polygraph because they're those killers, stone cold killers. All right, a little bit about lie detection there if you want to go back and take a look at it as well. The more you know about lying and about lying and about lying, if you want to get the PowerPoint. Now, nonverbal communication. We've talked throughout the semester that 93% of communication is nonverbal, 38% vocal, 55% body. There's a big difference between me saying, hey guys, you need to study for this test versus, hey guys, you need to study for this test. Same words, different tone, body language, hand gestures, all this fun stuff, facial expressions, my posture, my eye contact, all of this goes in. This is why in the 2016 election, you'll recall during the debates, they like to do the split screen a lot. So not only would they show the person talking, but then they'd show the other person's reaction to it. A lot of judgments were sort of made out of that. Again, we talked earlier about micro expressions. Micro expressions is that little subtle expression that we can pick up when we pause it. But a lot women better at reading this, but it's where you sort of pick those little things up. Mostly use the difference between a true expression and trying to deceive, like a fake smile. If a smile is too short, it's looked at as a smart thing. If a smile is too long, it's looked at as fake. In between is a true smile. Usually when you have a true smile, if you take a look at these two and you're trying to pick which one's the true smile, that one's the true smile. The reason why is the mouth goes a little bit more up in the corner than it does over here. You start to see wrinkles in the eyes that you don't see over there. All of these give you that sort of, that when you laugh or you smile, sort of, a surprise, a forced thing, as opposed to something that's fake. Same thing with tears, whatever else. Again, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath. Expressing emotions, gender, emotion, nonverbal behavior. Contrary to popular belief, women are not more emotional than men. Women are more likely to express emotion than men. When it comes to looking at films, sad, happy, scary, women expressing their emotions much more than men are. At the same time, women are better at reading emotions because they're more tapped into the right side of the brain, which is the more emotional side of the brain. They're going to express levels of emotions at greater rates, again, tied into that right side of the brain, which is also why women tend to be more empathetic. And we also credit them, for the most part, for being more empathetic. Now, again, there are some men that are more sensitive than some women. There are some women who are very insensitive. So we're making sort of stereotypical judgments here, but you sort of get what I'm saying. Men have been conditioned since a very young age not to express emotion. Suck it up, be a man, don't cry. Women, on the other hand, have been encouraged to express their emotions, both verbal and nonverbal ways. Why women can tell other women how much they love them, but guys have to, I love you, man. It's got to be deeper or whatever else that goes along with it. The one emotion that men are more likely to express is anger. If you take a look at those two faces to the right here, these are both androgynous faces and everything else. This looks more masculine. That looks more feminine. And the only reason why, this one's angry, wider eyes, kind of a frown. This one, smile, squint the eyes, happy. So we tend to assume that the one on the left, the one on the left is more feminine and the one on the right is more masculine. That's the assumption. When it comes to expressing emotions, facial expressions are cross-cultural. Absolutely. Most people around the world were able to take a look at these images on the right here. And if I were to ask you which one's happy, which one's sad, which one's surprise, which one's anger, which one's fear, and which one's disgust, people are pretty good at nailing these. The one that they nail the easiest, that's happiness, which I'm sure if you take a look here, right there, that's happiness. Sadness comes in next, right there. Surprise, anger, fear, disgust. Now, again, the most confusing ones are anger and disgust. You'll notice disgust a little more squinching in the nose, like, oh, that stinks, versus anger, more of a furrow of the brow, squintier eyes. Fear, big eyes. Surprise versus sadness, the brows go down. Fear and surprise very close to each other, but this could be excited and happy. This does not look happy. And then, of course, happiness stands on its own. When people are giving good news or bad news from different cultures, these expressions are pretty much universal. The only thing that's different is how much of an expression is made, not what the expression is, but how much of an expression. Universal face expressions, back in 1872, Charles Darwin wrote a book about the expression of emotions in man as well as animals. Studies have implied that certain basic facial expressions could be innate, but it's also learned, because babies sort of make the faces that they see. You smile, baby smiles. You frown, baby frowns, all these other things. This is why if the volume's down on a TV, you can still kind of follow what's going along. If I'm watching Telemundo, which is in Spanish, don't speak it, but I can still sort of follow along. I can look at the body language of players in a game and kind of know what the score is, because there's that expression, celebration versus lack thereof. Facial expressions are very universal due to the fact that they're innate. They're very easy to read. Body language, again, proximity, hand gestures, all of these are very similar. But they're, again, like with verbal language, there can be some confusion across cultures. This is a Confucius symbol. Nazis took it and ruined it. They ruined a lot of things. They also ruined doing the pledge. This is how people were doing the pledge back in the 1920s. You do that today, and you're sent down to the AP's office. Now, when it comes to, and again, there's a lot of things. This right here, we talked about what that means in Italian. Your wife's less than faithful. Good job in some areas, but then in other areas, it could be an insult, kind of a, up yours sort of a thing. The idea of an open hand, for some people, get out of my face, but for some people, it's more of a welcoming thing. The okay sign, for most of us, this goes, hey, good job, yeah, you're doing okay. But for some people, you're a zero, you're a loser, or something like that. Obscene gesture in Brazil, kind of a rectum thing going on. In modern day America, this suddenly becomes a W with a P, stands for power. A lot of people are taking away a lot of my favorite hand gestures. Can't use them anymore. Got to watch the neighborhood. When it comes to cultural and emotional expression, types of emotions cross-culturally expressed very well, but depending on, are you an individualistic culture versus a collectivist culture? Individualistic cultures tend to be more expressive because they're able to. You're much more individualistic. It's more about the me. So people don't have a problem smiling. They don't have a problem showing their sadness or whatever else the case may be, sort of expressing it. Versus collectivist cultures where the act of expression is more personal, so you're less likely to display it. Now, again, if you take a look at this, the red countries tend to be more individualistic countries, Western countries, Western Europe, Australia, the United States there as well. Whereas where you see the green countries tend to be a little bit more collectivist, more group oriented, which also, falls into communist, which is a sort of collective society or socialist society. So it's more about the group. Now, again, the big confusion here is Latin America, because we think of Latin Americans as very expressive, musically, whatever else the case may be, but their expression tends to be a group sort of expression. Let's celebrate as a family. Let's go as a church or whatever. They tend to be a little bit collective in their expression, if that makes sense. That's also why leaders, if you take a look at leaders from individualistic cultures, are more likely to express their feelings versus leaders of collectivist cultures. Now, when it comes to the effects of emotional expression, we mentioned the facial feedback theory. I feel happy because I'm smiling. The behavioral feedback theory is a tendency to influence our own and others' thoughts and feelings and actions by our behavior being mirrored by them. And sometimes it does. If you take a look at this guy right here, scores a touchdown. Look at these people raise their arms in the air like they just scored a touchdown as well. I see someone else laugh. I'm more likely to laugh. It puts me in comfort, whatever. This is Jimmy Fallon, sorry. And tends to be criticized because he laughs at his guests, like a lot, like over the top slapping. But it's to make his guests comfortable and put them at ease and everything else, and easier to share and all those other things. But our behavioral feedback can affect ourselves. It's not just affecting others socially. If I walk, with my shoulders slouched and shuffling my feet, I'm going to be in a worse mood than if I walk chest out, head back, eyes forward, smile on my face. I'm going to feel better. It's going to put me in a better mood as well. This goes back to the idea of look good, feel good, do good in part of our emotional expression. When you dress up, studies would show to be true. Had I worn a tie to work every day, you guys would have done better in class because you would have looked at me. First off, I would have taught better because I'm like, hey, I'm wearing a tie. I really got to be serious here. I really got to be on top of my A game. Versus, slugging around in a t-shirt and jeans. So the way that we dress has a large impact on that. I always use the Oregon football team over here, which has like a different uniform every week because the players, and get the uniform, get looking good, get the swag going on, whatever. It just makes you feel better. And it's no coincidence that Oregon, with all these different jersey combinations, one of their founders is Philip Knight of Nike. And even though they don't have the greatest recruiting classes, they're still one of the top programs in the nation. The better mood we're in, the more likely we are to be charitable, more likely we are to be sympathetic towards others. The worse mood I'm in, the less patience I'm going to have with other people. If I'm in a good mood, I'm going to help you out. If I'm in a bad mood, less likely. So look good, do good. All goes with that. Now, the second part of this unit is states of consciousness. And so our awareness of ourselves, our environment. We talked about all this early in the semester when we talked about sleeping, when we talked about memory. Every second we're taking in 2 billion bits of information. It takes 0.3 of a second to get through our body. Most information is processed outside of our awareness in our subconscious. Our conscious behavior is much slower because I got to take it in, put it through the frontal lobe. How does this affect everybody else? But a lot of times we throw this stuff away, don't remember how you drove to school, whatever the case may be. Daydreams and fantasies, we talked about this before, very frequent, very healthy. Young people tend to have more fantasies and daydreams than older people do. Older people tend to reflect on what's happened to us, whereas younger people, what am I going to be? What's going to happen? What's going to be the perfect world? Out a piece of paper and drawing a floor plan of your dream house, whatever. When you get older and you realize what you can afford. 4% of the population has fantasy-prone personalities. Now, don't get this confused with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is 1% of the population. But 4% have fantasy-prone personalities, which basically, I can't tell the difference between my fantasy life and the real life. I'm following LeBron James on Twitter. He's really my friend. Not the case. Now, again, this can delve into schizophrenia because you're following Miley Cyrus on Twitter, and then suddenly you think that she is your girlfriend, and you show up on her doorstep, and here come the police. But again, Fantasies can be great. You know, you rehearse, how am I going to ask this question? How am I going to ask this person out? How am I going to interview for this job? Whatever. It can be good. Now, states of consciousness we haven't talked about. Hypnosis. Hypnosis is the idea of getting rid of your defense mechanisms. Freud would say, put your ego to sleep so I can talk to your id and your super ego. Drops your guard a little bit. This is also what alcohol does to a lot of people as well. Gets rid of that consciousness. This is where we can get to childhood memories. But again, we can't get to a memory if it was never stored. So we're talking about being 2 or 3. Can't get to that. But sometimes we repress stuff and where defenses go up and we don't want to talk about it. Hypnosis allows you to get to that. But not only does it allow you to get to that, but it also opens you up for suggestion, which means that you can sometimes solve people's problems, some people's anxieties. You know, you put them in a hypnotic state, and then you go, when you wake up, you're no longer going to be afraid of that. Or somebody who smokes, you know, because they're addicted to the nicotine, whatever, you can put the thought in their mind that now cigarettes are going to taste disgusting, and you're going to hate them, and they'll be terrible. And for some people, it works. For some people, hypnosis is amazing, and it absolutely works because it drops that facade. Another way of sort of shutting down the brain states of consciousness is meditation. Again, the parasympathetic nervous system is preserving energy. So this is kind of making you preserve energy, putting off all distractions, lighting some candles, being in a room, repeating the mantra to yourself, I am one with me, and with me I am one. I am one with me, and you focus on those words, and you try to get locked into that. Stop things from coming into your head. You know, put your little cell phone down, the alerts that come in with it, whatever else the case may be. You want all that to go away. So I want to focus on the word. I want to focus on the mantra, and just give me a time to just shut my brain down. And it can be very, very powerful for a lot of people that do it. A lot of benefits there you see of meditation. Drug dependency and addiction. A psychoactive drug is a drug that changes the way you're experiencing the world. All right, it's a chemical substance, alters perceptions, mimics, blocks neurotransmitters. And there's 2 types of dependency issues we have with drugs. One is what is called a physiological dependence. And physiological dependence is a need for the drug because it's changing my neurotransmitter levels. I'm taking morphine because of the pain in my body. My ability to produce endorphins is not enough for the surgery that I just had. So I will take morphine to sort of double, triple, quadruple that up. So now I won't feel the pain. But then the problem is if you keep taking the morphine, then your body's not going to naturally produce as much of the endorphin transmitter, and then my tolerance to the morphine is going to go down and down, and I'm going to need more and more for it to be able to take care of itself. And then I just decide I'm going to quit the painkillers. Well, now I don't know how to make endorphins anymore. So again, the big problem with the physiological dependence on the drug is that you build a tolerance to it, sleeping pills, whatever the case may be. And then when you stop doing it, you go through a bit of a withdrawal with that. And that can be a terrible thing. And by the way, one of the number one abused drugs in the world, specifically in America, is painkillers. People who have surgery, whatever. That's why a lot of times you want to make sure you're not taking it too much. Only take it when it hurts. And then once you're not going through that pain anymore, flush it down the toilet. I guess fish won't feel the pain. But there's also what's called a psychological dependency with drugs, because a lot of people, especially people who do drugs, will want to come forward with the argument going, yeah, man, but it's not, that's my impression of people who do drugs. They go, yeah, it's not, there's no physical dependency. And the marijuana people love this. This is the big marijuana argument, is that there's no physiology. There's nothing within the cannabis. There's nothing within the THC. There's nothing within marijuana that is addictive physically, which is true. But psychologically, it's an entirely different beast. Psychologically, a lot of people depend on these drugs for the psychological benefit that they perceive from it. You know, even though marijuana may not be physically addictive, this need to escape from reality, this need to get myself going during the day, this need to calm down, and I can only do it if I have this. That's a psychological dependency, which could be just as bad, if not worse, than a physical dependency. You need to escape from reality, boredom, inability to cope with anxiety, all this stuff. Blind compliance with my peers. My friends are doing it, so I have to do it. Self-destructive. I want to do bad behavior so I can blame whatever I'm doing. Self-medicating. Ignorance to the harmful effects of the drugs. All these things. My doctor prescribed it to me, so it must be good. And if I take 3 of them, it'll be even better. All of that psychological dependency can be sometimes worse than the physiological dependence of drugs. Myths, let's be honest about drug use. It's gone down. Alcohol use has gone down. Marijuana use has gone down. Cocaine has gone down. Smoking's gone. All this stuff has gone down dramatically in the last few years. What some people will argue the reason why, your phone, because you're not as bored as people were back in the day. So you don't need to escape. I can go on. I've got every episode of Happy Days in here that I can take a look at. Drugs are more potent now than they've ever been. So again, more people using drugs than ever before, so it must be harmless. Of course, is a myth. Addictive drugs quickly corrupt and are there gateway drugs, guaranteed use of harder drugs. Not true. Of all people who try drugs, 10% will develop an addiction. Now, again, it's a big number because a big number of people try things, and there's some that are more addictive than others. And some with that addiction, some people have more of an addictive personality, which is going to push it up. There's alcoholism in my family. There's a great example of it, but I'm not an alcoholic. And I haven't drank really. Most people can take them for simple medication purposes, social purposes, whatever. So again, the idea that, oh no, I can't take that drug for after my surgery because I'll become, probably not. Addiction can only be overcome with therapy treatments. Therapy can help, but a lot of people who break an addiction do it kind of on their own. They just make a decision. I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, I'm going to die on my own, whatever. Now, when it comes to drug use, different types of drugs, you've got depressants. These are drugs that reduce neural activity, slow down neural activity. Alcohol is a depressant, which throws a lot of people off because you think of alcohol as a stimulant because people drink and they do crazy things. Because what it depresses, frontal lobe. Frontal lobe's not thinking. Frontal lobe's not logical. That sort of goes away, judgment, whatever else. You got the kid at the party, sees his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend walk to the party with another guy, and now suddenly he's going, oh, we're going to beat up that other guy to show her how much I love her. That your logic is depressed. It's off, which is why people are more likely to do riskier behavior. My processing of memory, my recall of memory, as we talked about earlier, state-dependent memory, context-dependent memory is all impacted by these depressants. So again, it impairs judgment. It impairs inhibition, which is why people tend to talk a little bit more or whatever. And again, different people are going to have different reactions to alcohol as well. Other types of depressant, barbiturates, which are tranquilizer, which again depresses the sympathetic nervous system. Opiates, morphine, heroin, again, blissful pleasure, or to replace painkillers or anxieties. So depressants are to bring us down a little bit, downer, especially people with anxiety and whatnot. Not so fun facts about alcohol. 1990 studies show that during college sexual assaults, 80% of the male assailants and 70% of the victims have been drinking because, again, judgment down. 90,000 collegians found alcohol or other drugs were involved in 80% of unwanted sexual activities. College students drink more alcohol than those people who don't attend college because, oh my God, you're supposed to be drinking. Fraternity and sorority members drink more because it's part of the culture. Freshmen drink at much higher rates than seniors. How in college now we're supposed to be doing this. So a lot of it is psychological and sociological. 9 in 10 students report being victims of alcohol abuse from other people in college. Bullying, sexual harassment, damaged property, disruption of sleep, all this stuff. But again, most people who drink can do it in a somewhat controlled social setting. 10% of U.S. drinkers consume 50% of alcohol You know, it's like sociopaths and psychopaths with crimes. You know, 10% of criminals commit 50, 60% of the crimes. Those are the people with the problem. And again, alcohol kills more people each year than all other drugs combined times two. When it comes to a stimulant is drugs that excite neural activity, speeds up the body functions, used to boost mood, stay awake, lose weight, whatever. Diet pills makes the heart just beat faster and faster and faster. Try to get your metabolism going. Caffeine, stimulant, give you a little bit of extra boost in the morning. But what happens is your body can only sort of do this artificial thing for so long, and then you're going to hit a crash. Caffeine, most common stimulant used. You know, Starbucks might as well be a crack house. Nicotine, second most common one used. Cigarette smoking amongst teens has gone down, but look at what's gone up. Vaping, e-cigs, which have nicotine in them, which are addictive. When they're having the little Juul, whatever things, they're doing this to addict you and bring you in, because that's how you get a repeat buyer again and again and again. Amphetamines, again, speed up body functions. A lot of times you see those in diet pills. Cocaine, most addictive stimulant. Very few recreational users. Very few people can just try cocaine. It's very addictive substance. Again, when it comes to tobacco, cigarettes versus e-cigarettes are both bad. They're both bad. E-cigarettes were designed to wean people off of cigarettes because the idea was the smoke in your lungs was so bad. So this still has the nicotine. It's still got the nicotine, which is addictive. It's a stimulant. And where people go, well, e-cigarettes aren't as bad as smoking. Well, it's like saying being attacked by a shark isn't as bad as being attacked by a lion. They both suck. Either way, it's a bad thing to do. And again, we don't know the long-term effects of e-cigarettes. Vaping has many of the same side effects, and now we're starting to see lung damage. And now what we're starting to see is right now we're in the middle of the whole coronavirus thing as I make this video, and younger people who are having the biggest problem with it, needing respirators, have compromised lungs because of vaping. We have no idea what the long-term things are here. Finally, with drug use, hallucinogens. These are psychedelic drugs. These are drugs that alter sort of the way you see the world. Things appear that aren't really there, whatever the case may be. Music sounds a little bit different. The movie seems a little bit whatever else. LSD, which is a synthetic chemically produced drug. PCP, which is angel dust. And marijuana, which again, major active ingredient is THC. Marijuana is a little bit difficult because it is a depressant like alcohol, but there's also a bit of the hallucinogen in it, so it tends to be qualified under this. Slows the motor function like alcohol, but it does have the potential to be psychologically addictive because of that dependency, that lifestyle, everything else, you know. I think that's it. I think that's the last page. So there you go. That should have been vocab 17. That's all of unit 8.5, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, if you have any questions, easy ways to reach out to me, email, and that's the easiest thing, or ask me in class. All right, enjoy. I'm gonna go do another one.